We're going to try to talk about a couple different questions. The biggest challenges we faced in 2025 because of Parkinson's, and hopefully, if we had a challenge, we found a way to sort of work forward from that challenge. Also, something good from 2025 that happened for us related to Parkinson's, and maybe something that we're hoping for Parkinson's generally in 2026, and something about that we think we might change in our own lives in 2026 to give us to try to address an issue we're facing in Parkinson's in 2026. I'm going to kick this off with asking Stan if he can chime in on some of the challenges that he faced in 2025 and what he did to sort of try to address them. And we're going to start there because, well, you'll see. I'll let Stan tell his story. So tell us about 2025, Stan. What happened in 2025?
So the thing that's been a big in Parkinson's for me is I had DBS surgery 2 weeks ago today. So I'm still in the recovery time. It's been an interesting process. Since I've had Parkinson's disease and dealt with this difficult disease, the idea of DBS has always sort of been on the horizon. I've talked to people who've had it, and generally it's been very positive. And they said, "Oh, I'd do it over again in a moment because it's really helped." And so it was nice to have that as sort of something to look forward to as a possible thing to do to help with my symptoms. So I got in the whole process of going through all the workup and the evaluation, and all of a sudden the time had come and it was time for the surgery. So I went ahead and did it. And then after I did it, I realized, that was a big step. It's pretty much, it's a pretty big leap of faith to talk to a neurosurgeon and let them put a hole in your skull and put wires in there. I'm never going to be the same again. And now that I have wires in my brain and electrical stimulation there. So, and possible complications that it could still come on. Luckily I've done well for the first 2 weeks and I haven't had any significant complications, but you just start wondering and being apprehensive about what's going to happen in the future. And so, I had a little bit of the honeymoon period after the surgery where it seemed like I needed less pills, but over the last week or so, I've needed more and more pills. I think I've having more off periods and more insomnia, and the problems that I had, the big problems I had with the Parkinson's before the surgery are back. So now the big question is what's going to happen when they turn on the electricity? Am I going to have a positive benefit, or am I going to have side effects? How much can they adjust the machine to help make it a positive experience? So that's a little bit, again, apprehensive and concerning and not really knowing what to expect. But I'm optimistic because I did talk to a lot of people, and most people, almost everyone I talked to said this was a good thing. It was going to be something you'll be glad you did. So I'm thinking, well, I'm just going to go with that. And when they turn it on in a couple of weeks, we'll see what happens and continue the process. So it's an interesting process. It's a leap of faith, and it's something that obviously is going to be a big part of my 2026 because there's still a lot to figure out, a lot to do, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so Colleen just chimed in the chat and said, be patient when they turn it on, and that they had their surgery in about 10 weeks ago. And I'm wondering, Stan, related to that, can you say a little bit about how the team that you went with, is your movement disorder specialist going to be your programmer? What's going on that front?
Yeah, maybe it was interesting. My movement disorder specialist was in the operating room asking me questions when I was sedated, and they wanted to know if they had the wire in the right place. So she would ask me to say something and move my eyes and to sort of challenge and make sure they had the thing in the right place. So she was involved. The appointment I made was with I think a PA who specializes in turning on the machine and knowing a lot about that. So I don't think my movement disorder specialist is going to be there, but I might be wrong. I think she'll probably be called in if there's problems or questions, but hopefully
Yeah, I
go.
know a lot of people that have their programming done by a PA or somebody else in the office that's not their movement disorder specialist. So it's not there's no reason to prefer it one way or another. I was just curious if you had a read on that. Another thing I wanted to ask is a couple people have chimed in about symptoms that might have made you think about this. I don't know if you have a comprehensive sense of what symptoms they told you were the ones that would be best treated, but can you comment on that a little bit? Just what symptoms you led you to do? I know you said it quickly, but can you comment again on that for us?
Yeah, I think the big one is the motor symptoms, the tremors, the off periods. Just taking pills when you get up in the morning, and then an hour later having tremors that the pills just aren't covering. And that's the nature of the Parkinson's disease. It just gets worse over time, and over years, every year it goes by, they have more off periods. So I think that that's really what the surgery is mostly benefits people who have those symptoms. Um, yeah, and I think there's less when I talk to people trying to understand it. I think some people say it helps sleep, some people say it helps other symptoms, but I think there's a lot of variability as far as the other symptoms. I think the main one is the motor symptoms and the the tremors, the off periods.
Yeah, so basically the things that are potentially going to be that respond well for you with levodopa are most likely to respond well with regards to DBS treatment. That's my understanding from having talked with a bunch of specialists about this. And also, I would say, as a quick note, following up on that, we have a couple webinars coming up that we're going to publish. There's not going to be an audience for them; they're going to be pre-recorded, but they'll be talking about this question about symptoms directly. So you can keep an eye out for that. One last thing I want to highlight before I ask, let the other panelists just chime in and see if they have any questions for Stan, or if they want to move on to the next part of the conversation. But I just want to highlight the note that was in the chat here from one of our audience members saying that they had their surgery on the 22nd of September, and then the battery and the generator put in on the 29th. It was turned on the 14th. They got home, put their walker downstairs and walking sticks in the closet, and haven't used them since. So that sounds like a great outcome, and I'm so glad to hear that. I just thought it was important to share that note because people that watch this recording will get to see that, and everybody's experience is going to be a little different. But that sounds like a great experience, and I'm really pleased to read that. So thanks for sharing that in the chat there.
Congratulations, Stan, too. It's a big step. Yeah, it's great to see you looking so good.
Thanks.
When will you be able to rejoin us in Rocksteady Boxing?
Well, I have an appointment for post-op appointment in a couple of weeks, and Patty, our coach, wants a signed okay from my doctor saying I can go back. So I'll get it signed in a couple of weeks. So I'm thinking the first week of December.
Great.
But I miss it. I miss the socializing. I miss the people. I miss, getting the exercise. It's been an
We've been
important
thinking
part.
about you.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, I do have one sort of funny thing, Stan. I don't know if I ever told everyone on the webinar yet, but I decided to have a party that was games that were hard to play with Parkinson's. We thought it was going to be so much fun. It was not. But the only guy who could do pickup sticks at the whole party is the only one who had DBS. So we had dueling operation games, we had Jenga, I don't remember what all the games were, but I do know that the one guy with the DBS was great at everything. And the rest of us were like, screw this, I don't want to do this anymore. We're changing the Pictionary. So there's hope for
Twister. Thank you for chiming in, Polly. Twister. It's my life is like a game of Twister constantly.
Dystonia Twister. That's a good one.
I feel like that I'm playing Twister when I do yoga sometimes if I'm not particularly well medicated.
I'm playing Twister with my foot right now. So
yeah. So Stan, I have another question I'd like to ask if you don't mind.
Sure.
It sounds like you said, since your movement disorder specialist was in the room with you, it sounds like you were awake during the process.
Right.
Can you comment on that? What was that like for you? Do you have any observations that you'd like to share? I know a lot of people have questions about that element.
So the way they did it in Madison, Wisconsin, is they I was awake for the first 4 hours, which when they put the wire into the brain, but then they put me to sleep for the last 2 hours where they put the wire down the neck into the front of the chest and connect it with the generator in the chest wall. So mostly I was awake and then I was asleep. But so what they do is when you first go in, they give you a sedative. Karen would know all about it, to make you a little drowsy, just to start the process. And like I think they give you more when they bore into your skull. But then when they're ready to ask questions about, is this in the right place? What's your reaction when I move it here? When I move it here? Sort of trial and error. They actually say we're going to lighten up the anesthesia so that you can think more and you can be more involved in the process. So they manage the anesthesia so that they can interact with you and get information to help them do the right thing. So I think, he gave me the option of being asleep for the whole process or being awake for part of it. And it just seemed like the results were better. I don't know, he probably wouldn't agree with this, but the neurosurgeon, but it seemed like if they could get the patient input to try to figure out where the lead should be placed, that would be better than if they couldn't.
Was that scary, Stan, or did you feel calm?
I felt pretty calm.
Okay.
Yeah, I felt like, I was fine. The anesthesia is sort of I think it helps with anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are prone that way, I think it settles you down.
Yeah.
So I think it was okay.
Good. Good. And it seems like you've recovered really well too. You look great.
Well, thanks. They say you're going to be tired, and I was tired, and I'm still tired. I sleep a lot of times. I take 2 naps a day and just sleep a lot. That's gotten better, but I do a lot of exercise, and I try to keep in good shape. So I think I went into it without a lot of disability or risk.
Tell me more. Like, what do you hope you can accomplish with your symptoms being as well managed as you think they will, as we hope they will be because of DBS? What would you most like to accomplish in 2026?
I'd like to just continue to do the things I enjoy doing: cycling, being outside, hiking. I don't want to. I think deep in my psyche, I'm concerned that if I have complications, that I won't be able to do those kind of things that have been really important to me. So I don't want to have any deficits that came as a result of this process that I wouldn't have had if I didn't have it.
Yeah, I've been sort of taking that approach myself lately, just trying to make sure that I take the time to do the things that I enjoy doing. In particular, I decided that I would referee again this year, and I'll chime in with that as a note for myself as something that was good for me in 2025. I've been a referee for 15 years or so, and it's starting to get harder. I referee games for adults and for children and for kids and for high school age people, and sometimes it's hard to keep up even before I had symptoms of Parkinson's, but I was able to do it again this year, and I actually got to a couple playoff games out here, and that was a really positive thing for me. But I had to really make the effort to do it because it was not, I'm like concerned about the tremor, and I'm thinking, if people see my tremor, they're going to notice this. And anyway, but I did it, and it went really well, and I was able to do a couple playoff games, and it felt really good to do that and to keep at it. And I see somebody asked in the chat, I've refereed basketball in the past and soccer. I've stopped doing basketball because it's a little too hard on my body to do the hard court. I have some old ankle injuries, but yeah, I do soccer mostly anymore. And so that was a highlight for me. And but I had to choose it, and I think that if my symptoms continue to progress and management becomes more difficult, then I'll have to think about it again. But this year I was able to do it, so that was a good thing for me. What else? Maybe we can shift out of this and say, what else? What other challenges did any of the other panelists face in 2025? What were some successes in 2025? What do we got?
Well, I know for me, a challenge was getting this cervical dystonia stuff under control so that I could be less painful and be upright more often. And I'm happy to say that after, I think it was my third round of Botox and neck, head, and shoulders, I think we're finally ahead of it. So, knock on wood, I'm hoping for way fewer headaches in 2026 and more days that I can be upright longer. So, it's uncomfortable for the pokes, but it's worth it for the, the mobility and, I feel really grateful. Yeah.
So what is that experience like, both to this experience of cervical dystonia? Can you tell us a little bit of what that's like? And is the main problem the headache? I mean, can you go into it a little bit?
Yeah, I had pre-diagnosis, I had a lot of tightness and discomfort between my shoulders, between those two scapula that move in your back. And I thought it was just because I was catching babies and up late and in all kinds of positions. And really, what it has been, it's been Parkinson's, and it's sort of moved north from between my shoulder blades all the way up to my neck, and then so it's painful, and then subsequent to that, I would get migraine headaches, which just totally laid me out. So it took some sifting through trying to figure out, was it migraine related? Was it Parkinson's related? Was it dystonia? Was it, like so many of us go through? So I was grateful that my neurologist, and also doing some things like seeing an ophthalmologist who helped me realize that I was also playing with my progressive lenses and tipping my head different ways. So I got rid of my progressive lenses. So it's about how to make adaptions. Now I have glasses all over the place that I wear at different times. But again, I'll take that over a headache. Um, and it's the trial and error stuff that gets wearing sometimes, I think, for all of us, right? And pain is pain is pain. And so I just feel really grateful, like that I found a solution that works fairly well. It's not a panacea, but it really helps. And I'm less painful a lot. I take muscle relaxants kind of that help too. Um, but I definitely have less pain and way fewer headaches. And I'm able to do things like consistently. I was able to go give a talk in Sacramento. I hadn't given a talk for almost 2 years, maybe a little less than 2 years. So I was grateful to get to do that. Bless you, Chris.
Thanks.
Anyway, did that answer the question?
Yeah, I just thought
Yeah.
it might be useful to say a little more about that, because I know, not everybody has experience of dystonia. I personally
Yeah.
don't often. I've had it every so often. I'll feel it in my foot, but the
Yeah.
cervical dystonia isn't the most common place, people experience that. So I thought it might be
Right.
useful to hear
And
what it's like.
somebody's asking what is dystonia too.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's abnormal cramping, and not everybody with Parkinson's gets it. A lot of people get it in their feet and toes. I had it first in my hands, and then it's cramping. It's like having a Charlie horse, but all the time, for lack of a better word. It's my non-clinical self talking.
I had an interesting conversation with somebody that I met in town here. By the way, I'm in Bend, Oregon. I didn't say that when I went in the chat, but that's where I'm calling in from. And I met somebody the other day through a friend of mine who has, and this person I met has Parkinson's, and he said that dystonia has been really hard for him in his feet. And he actually said one of the things he does when he wakes up, he keeps one of those, it's like a toe spreader sort of that you might use if you're painting your toenails, for example. He'll, if he feels like it might be about to come on, he'll or if it is on, if the dystonia has arrived for him, he'll, while he's waiting for the meds to kick in that might help a little bit, because for him his medication does help. He'll put his feet in that, and it seems to really make a difference for him. Just something about the way it spaces is out, it like holds it in a position that makes it work for him, or that helps him not feel the pain.
Yeah.
So what else? What were the other challenges? Karen, what about you? What did you have going on? And I know, Stephanie, we'll get to your challenges too, which I know there's some things going on in the background here too. So
Yeah.
I think last year, two main things. Taking care of my mom, who's not been doing well, who's on hospice now, and it's been a challenge balancing the things that she needs with my own life and wanting to be there for her and realizing that I have to take care of myself first, or I can't take care of her and it feels selfish. And I'm a nurse, so at heart, I just want to give it all to the other person, and that's just not the way it works to be healthy and balanced. So I'm trying to be less of a nurse and more of a daughter, and I'm looking forward to that. And that's one thing. And then the other thing kind of relates just knowing my limits. I'm a hard pusher. Like I work really hard. When I put my mind around something or I choose something, I mean, it's like there's no stopping me, but to a fault. I didn't take care of myself enough, like just in terms of doing the things that I love and the stuff that I was doing, though it was a drive, wasn't feeding, it was feeding my soul in a way, but it was also creating a lot of stress. And I didn't ride my bike enough. I didn't even watch television or like things that help me relax, like go sitting in the garden or playing with my dogs. Like literally, I did nothing but that thing. And I learned that I don't like that. Like I just don't. I love what I'm doing, which is also one of the greatest gifts that came out of last year. Like, I really think that I've found something I'm passionate and joyful about that challenges me intellectually doing, this fundraising and this event. It's deeply meaningful to me and it's a new experience, but that's not the only experience and the only part of my life.
Yeah, that sounds really important and probably harder than it would seem maybe to get to that point.
Well, it took a lot to get to where we are. And I kind of put that time and effort in. And now it's time to think about how to change it so I can have more balance. And I'm working on that. It's keeping my mind going. Welcome, all ideas. So send them my way.
Yeah, so Stephanie, what's the thing that you were facing this year that stands out to you?
Yeah, a couple of things, kind of similar to Karen. I found myself in another caregiving role. My bio dad d started to decline. And I'm in Wisconsin and he lived in Georgia. So I went down a couple times to support him and his wife. And supporting my dad's wife through her denial of my dad's dementia was really, really challenging because it was so obvious to me. And she just was not seeing it. And he did pass away in June, and I was grateful that I could be there with him when he passed away, and his wife was there too. And it just, I don't know how this is going to sound, but I just had this feeling like I don't know how this is going to sound. Like I'm tired of being a caregiver. I want someone to take care of me. And I maybe said that to my siblings, like, sorry, I'm recovering from the flu. Um, like I need some TLC. I just want some TLC when I get home. And bless their hearts, they bought me a spa package. So I got a facial and a mani and a pedi, and I'm like, oh, this is so lovely. And it's it, yeah, so that was challenging again. And then I was also trying to manage some symptoms that I wasn't sure if it was Parkinson's, but now I am. I was having some trouble with urinary incontinence and started seeing a pelvic floor physical therapist, which was really, really helpful. And then got referred to a urogynecologist who specializes in working with people with neurodegenerative disorders, like Parkinson's and MS and others. And that was really, really helpful. And we could sort of pinpoint what the issue was, and I started on medication, it's been a life changer for me. It's been an absolute life changer. Um, so I share that. I mean, it's personal, right? No one likes to talk about incontinence, but I share that because there's things that we can do to help manage that symptom. It's not fun to pee your pants in public, as Karen knows. As I ended up doing a couple times out when I was at the bike ride. Um, but yeah, that's been a game changer, and my quality of life has really, really improved after that experience with the pelvic floor physical therapist. And the incontinence medication is called Vesicare, I think is what it is. Um, and so for now, that's working, and I'm just really grateful that I was able to access the specialists and the care providers who could help me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And also super brave, Stephanie. Thank you. Gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
it's a lot.
So do they have you
Yeah.
on exercises? Is that what's the main benefit is the,
For the pelvic floor
yeah.
physical therapist. Yep, there were some exercises. So my particular situation is that my pelvic floor was very tight and rigid. Um, and I had overactive bladder, so I just could not. I mean, the urgency was so bad, I couldn't make it. Um, and so trying to soften the pelvic floor was one approach, and there were various kinds of exercises. But one of the things that connected me with thinking this is more of a Parkinson's thing rather than like maybe a menopause symptom. Now this is going to get really personal, and I'm very sorry. But on the internal exam, what ended up happening is my whole right side would just clamp down and get super stiff and rigid. And so that made me attribute it to like the Parkinson's component because my right side is the side that tremors. It's the side that has dystonia in my lower extremity. And and it just brought me to tears to think like, oh, this is another Parkinson's symptom. But now it's managed, and I'm really grateful.
How long were you working with the pelvic floor specialist?
Oh, probably about 6 months.
And was it, did the benefits occur like over that time, consistently or inconsistently? Was it only at the end? Tell us more if you can.
Yeah. So, first of all, I think seeing a pelvic floor physical therapist is really helpful to be able to like um, properly diagnose what's happening physiologically and, physically with the pelvic floor muscles. Um, and so in the beginning, we worked on exercises. And then we worked on some sort of internal devices that help with managing incontinence. And And then we moved on to a referral to the urogynecologist to get input on what medication options might be available. I didn't know if there would be, so I it was kind of a continuum, starting with maybe the least invasive, and then sort of up to where I am now with the management with the medications. Um, but I tried things like there was I don't know if you all know what a TENS unit is, but it provides an electrical current, and there's um I would put that,
That's the pads, right? You can put it like
it's
a,
the pads, yep, and you're demonstrating here, and these pads would go on my leg down by my ankle. And that was stimulating a nerve that helps to calm the bladder. All these things I learned when I went to the pelvic floor physical therapist.
Mhm.
Um, and so that was something that I tried. Um, you know, Exercises like physical exercises inside, and then also like hip exercises externally. Um, what else? Some a pessary. That was a word
Mhm.
that I never knew before. Cat and
Yeah,
Karen probably know what that is.
mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
an internal device that helps manage incontinence. That is
Yeah.
more for stress incontinence, I think. Like when you cough or sneeze and you have some leak. Um, it was still helpful, but not to the extent that this medication was a game changer for me.
So, Stephanie, I'm just curious about maybe there's a connection here, maybe there's not. Is your dystonia that you experienced in your foot? Where do you experience dystonia?
Yeah, I was experiencing it in my right leg as a whole, like just like I would find myself sitting and that whole right side was just rigid and clamped down. And I wouldn't really even be aware of it until it just released. And then I was like, oh my God, how long has that been happening? And then it would release. There was a time, maybe earlier in the year, when I noticed that my foot was starting to become involved and it was starting to twist in the morning and become more painful. Um, and uh, that Yeah, and that was something I brought to my neurologist, and I started on rasagiline for that, and that's been helpful. I don't have that foot twisting and cramping anymore.
And would you is that where you had the TENS unit applied to on your right leg?
You could apply it on either, so it didn't matter which. So I did it on my left just because I'm right-handed and I could cross over to my
Yeah.
left easier. Yeah.
I was
Um,
wondering if it might have helped with the experience of the
of the
dystonia or not.
dystonia.
Mm.
I have no idea.
I
I'm just
don't know.
wondering.
Yeah, that's a good question. Someone's asking the name of the medication again. Vesicare is the name of it. I don't
With
know.
a V,
With a V.
Vesicare.
Yeah, let
Mhm.
me look it up. I'll find it for you guys. It's Vesicare. Here,
I'd love to comment too, if it's okay, Stephanie. I think it's
yeah.
such a great example of kind of advocating for yourself too and sticking with it, that this symptom's
Mhm.
happening, it's not going well, it takes trial and error. We've got to, not everybody experiences it. It's different for men and women, but
Mhm.
keep workshopping it with our providers if it's really impacting our quality of life. We have to kind of be the squeaky wheel sometimes. Otherwise, our providers don't know what's going on with us. So, you
Exactly.
know,
I have a
yeah,
question to the panel in general and anyone outside the panel. I mean, you live in Madison, Wisconsin. There's a big university there, medical school. I'm sure that you have better access to a urogynecologist, although they're fairly common, but this pelvic floor specialist with neurologic disorders. I mean, I have
yeah,
watched you in St. Louis and
Mhm.
Oregon Health Sciences University or any number of places, but
right.
there's so many people with Parkinson's that do not live in a community like that with
Mhm.
those sorts of specialists. Um, is
Mhm.
there a way to have access to that? I don't know. I'm just curious because everybody deserves that special attention, but it's not available to everyone. Any thoughts on this, Stan, or anybody?
Well, I think it's a big problem, as you say, that people, part of it is not knowing. I mean, just with Stephanie talking about this issue that can be very private and people don't want to talk about it a lot. Just bringing it out so people is aware that it's a problem that people with Parkinson's has, just so people can feel more comfortable seeking help. But yeah, if you live out in the middle of nowhere and you need to see a urogynecologist, to get access and to make the trip and to stick with it, it's a big job. And it's not everyone doesn't have that isn't that lucky to have that access. But those of
Mhm.
us who live in a university town have benefits.
Even just access to movement disorder specialists, we know is challenging for people living in rural communities. And so some of these other subspecialists, telehealth is great, but I mean, quite honestly, for some of the stuff that we are experiencing, you really need to have an in-person consult and exam. So I feel for folks. Yeah.
But I think it's still okay to bring it up to our providers that, hey, I heard that it might be helpful to find out what your insurance might cover. And there may be some ways to do hybrid methods. I know that I'm just recently moved to a much more rural area. I'm calling in today from Greensboro, North Carolina, just because I'm visiting some family here, but we are moving to rural South Central Washington, and my insurance is going to change next year. Um, and so I think us trying to bring it up and trying to advocate for ourselves um, and at least asking the questions is a good place to start. And like Stan said, letting providers know that these are symptoms that we're experiencing, even if we can't have access maybe as quickly or as close by. Um, and they're doing some marvelous things with telehealth regionally. So sometimes some critical access hospitals may have times where they have access to specialists. And it may just be a small window. You may have to wait later, but don't opt to not do it because you live rurally. Don't assume that you don't have access. I think that would be my advice.
I want to jump in with a quick observation about sort of following up on that idea of making sure you communicate with your physicians about what's going on, in part because I think I'm not 100% sure about this, but I think Vesicare actually can have some complications for people with Parkinson's because I think it's an anticholinergic medication, and so I think I'm not sure about this, but that's the point, right? If somebody recommended that for me, I would want to make sure that if it was not my movement disorder specialist, that recommended a medication for me, I would always bring that back to my movement disorder specialist to make sure that there's not a contraindication because they may not catch it. I mean, who knows? There's so many ways they could, but there's also so many ways they couldn't, right? So, whenever you make an adjustment like that, it's not only important to tell your provider when you have a symptom, also when somebody else recommends a medication, if so, they don't always close the loop, right? So make sure you do.
That's a really good point. Thanks, Chris, for mentioning that.
And your pharmacist too. It's
Yeah.
good to, workshop it, try to get your meds all at the same pharmacist and ask the questions there too. If you're like, oh shoot, I meant to do that before I got it filled, and ask your pharmacist. They'll know also.
Yeah, I've got in the habit of that because of taking Razagiline, and I recognize that that's a little bit the concerns about using Razagiline are in terms of medication interactions are maybe you hear about them more prominently than other medications sometimes, but I don't think I'm actually concerned about this really. But I got in the habit of mentioning it because I was concerned about Razagiline in the beginning of taking it, and I just
Sure.
whenever anything comes up, it could be any medication whatsoever, I'm always talking to the pharmacist.
Mhm.
So what about 2026? What are we hoping for 2026?
Stephanie, I want to hear from you. You
I
look
yeah.
excited. I'm
Well,
like,
so a couple things. So what I'm excited about it for 2026 is the possibility that we may pass legislation in Wisconsin to establish a Parkinson's disease registry. Um, the bill was introduced in October. It's making its way. It's been assigned to committee. We need to make a few amendments, and we'll see. If it doesn't get signed into law, this legislative session will continue our advocacy efforts and outreach, and then look at like the next legislative session in 2027. So I'm hopeful that we'll get there. Um, and then I'm pumped about two big things. One is I'm going to go to the World Parkinson's Congress, yay, in
yay.
May, my first Congress. And I am going back to Washington, D.C. with the Michael J. Fox Foundation in March for another policy forum. So continuing to do advocacy work, not only at our state level, but the national level, um, which is so great. I'm really loving the advocacy policy work that I've been involved with. So that's on the sort of Parkinson side. And then I may be going to the Netherlands
Oh,
on a trip. I know. So let's see.
well, I have to
When would that be?
so busy.
Yeah. When would I go to the Netherlands?
Yeah.
At the end of April. So, oh, and I want to do the bike ride again this year in 2026. So there's the Tour de Victory, um, and then shortly after that is the World Parkinson's Congress. And yeah, there's a lot of good things to be looking forward to.
Stephanie, one other question just came in that maybe you can address from Joanne. Why is the registration important? What is it? What is it? Why do we want that?
The registry, I think
Yeah.
maybe is what you're wondering about.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so 15 states currently have Parkinson's disease registries. Um, and the purpose of those registries is to track the incidence and prevalence of Parkinson's in your state because we don't have a systematic way of capturing that data. It's based on estimates, I guess, organizations that are doing some data gathering and then kind of extrapolating to the state, what your state may have in terms of numbers of people living with Parkinson's. And so if we can capture more accurate data, I think we'll have a better opportunity to impact access to care. So we were talking about rural communities just a bit ago. Like if we have a sense that there's a greater number of people living in rural communities living with Parkinson's, perhaps we can help provide more resources in those communities for people to access movement disorder specialists or other resources. The data can also be helpful to researchers who are doing research in the space of Parkinson's. We may be able to look at distribution of the cases of Parkinson's in our state so that if there are clusters or pockets or sort of hotspots or heat maps, like why is that? What's going on there? Might we be able to um, influence policy regarding the use of pesticides or the use of, or, air pollution and chemicals and dry cleaners and so on. So there are a lot of ways to use the data to help with quality of care, research, and so on. I hope that answers your question. Joanne, thanks for the question. So I'm hoping Wisconsin will be the 16th state. That's my hope.
Yeah. Thanks for doing that, first of all, and thanks for answering
Yeah.
the question too.
Sure.
Um, Sounds like you have an exciting 2026 coming up. What else? What else are we looking forward to in 2026?
Are you asking me or the other
Nah,
panelists?
everybody. If you have
Okay.
anything else too, I mean, if you have something else, I'm going to think you're going to be very busy. But
Yeah. Well, I haven't, one, I'm not sure if I'm looking forward to it or scared of it or both. Um, I have a new movement disorder team coming into my life. My movement disorder neurologist who took care of my father for 22 years and was a fellow then is now in his mid to late 70s and is retiring from clinical practice. And then his nurse practitioner moved on. I think there's a lot of pressure in that practice to see way more patients than folks are comfortable with, which is unfortunate because losing good people. Um, and it's scary because, like, emotionally, I feel like, oh, they knew my dad, I feel connected to them. So it's scary because I don't know, it feels like weird. But I'm also excited. There's like fresh young minds and people who maybe, you cling to old folks that you're comfortable with, but you might be losing some benefit of a new team that is just as good or maybe better in ways. And I think just looking forward to see what that brings into my life and into my wellness and care for Parkinsonism. I also look forward to this is going to be experiment in whatever in progress. Just having a better year in terms of like taking care of my health and exercise and happiness, just joyfulness and sociability. That's huge. I've realized for some of the new things I'm doing that I tend to try to do stuff on my own. And having friends is wonderful. Like friends in my town, not just here. I have a million friends in the Parkinson's community. I pick up the phone anytime, but somebody to go for a walk with, somebody to have a coffee with at a cafe or ride my bike with, or just, be with in some way. So I'm bringing more of that into my life, and I'm excited to see how it will change my my year in 2026. Simple thing.
Mm, it's awesome.
Mhm.
Uh, so, Kat, do you have anything that's coming up in 2026 that you wanted to add? Something you're looking forward to?
Uh, I want to dig in the dirt more in my new house on a hill. I want to plant a garden. I want to grow my own food. It gets me outside and exercising with a wheelbarrow and a shovel and sometimes a chainsaw. Um, and it keeps me invested and engaged and also eating better and taking care of my health when I look out the window and know, I got to till that or I've got to go dig in that. I better get my act together here. And yeah, I'm very blessed. Ironically, Karen's dad had somebody asked a question about fathers with Parkinson's. My dad also had Parkinson's disease. So there's a lot of us, even though, who knows? Anyway, that's my goal. And WPC was high on my list too. I can't recommend it highly enough for everybody. So
Yeah, I want to note here that some folks I appreciate what you just said, Kat. I just want to draw attention to the fact that people are starting to put things in the chat what they're looking forward to.
I
I
love
love it if
that.
people keep doing that because it's great to see the things that people are looking forward to. Thanks for sharing that, Greg and Doreen. Uh,
Yeah.
Documentary film
Thank
coming out called On Firm Ground, positive story about two people who had difficulties with their DBS surgery but overcame them. Thanks for sharing that documentary. It's called On Firm Ground.
Love
Thanks,
that.
Greg.
Finding more joy. That's my joy in the dirt, joy on the hill, joy at the WPC. I don't know, joy here with this webinar. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
How
hoping to get in
about
the
you,
dirt
Chris? What
myself.
are you looking forward to in 2026?
Yeah, I'm hoping to get in the dirt too. We have a garden in the backyard here. We've been doing so much other yard work, but I'm finally going to start to prioritize getting vegetables in the ground again. I haven't done that for a couple of years, and I'm looking forward to that. Um, Partially for exercise, partially for the food of it, partially because I like doing it. Um, and I think I also need to start going to there's a neuro PT group, a neurophysical therapy group. There's actually two in town here, and I love both of them. They're excellent here in Bend. It's like heaven for having Parkinson's. There's so much great resource here, but I haven't been seeing them very often. I want to join the group exercise class that again, I had done it in the past and I just haven't been able to make it work and I need to start getting back into that. Physical therapists here are great and I want to get back engaged with them, so I'm going to do that. And also, I guess I'd add too that I volunteer with one of the groups to run a walking soccer for Parkinson's program, and we're continuing that this year. And they actually got a grant to make it work, so they're offering it for free this time. And for the past couple of terms, we've done it, and there's been a fee to the people who participate. But now they're going to be able to do it for free, which is great. And that sounds maybe crazy to play soccer when you have Parkinson's, but a lot of the folks have never kicked a soccer ball before, and the real point is just to help with balance and some of the other more dynamic movements and balance. So the changes that I've seen and that people have seen in doing this, playing a little bit of soccer, is really, really remarkable. I mean, the difference in people's mobility and their confidence has really been great. So I'm hoping that we continue to have that experience and that it continues to show promise for the people in my area. So that's another thing I'm looking forward to. Speaking of things I'm looking forward to, I want to try to get a couple questions in that we received from the audience before the webinar because I think some of them are they're not necessarily pressing, but I think I want to try to get to them if we can in the last few minutes. So one of them came in and it was about the stooped posture. I don't actually know how to pronounce this. Does anybody know how to pronounce that? Camptocormia? Did I get that right? All you medical providers on the panel? Camptocormia?
I have to
Anyways,
go
stoop
back and look
posture.
at how it's spelled.
Um,
Makes me sit up.
yeah, as soon as you see it, you gotta set up. So there are some links that I think Bo can put in the chat about this topic, but
Hmm.
also I don't know if anybody has any experience with how they might have improved their own posture and their own and worked against the stooping that they may experience. Anybody have any advice? Yeah, Kat, what do you got?
Yeah, I did a lot with actually with patients when they were pregnant, too, because that baby pulled everything forward. And so getting a foam roller and laying open on a foam roller, everything we do is so forward. Our phones, our computers, everything, trying to get on a position where you open up that and stretch those other muscles. like Stephanie was talking about, that tight right side. We do that with our backs too. And it feels good. It's very low cost. You can do it anywhere. And PT also can help, I think, some with that. Physical therapy.
Yeah, I've had some help with the physical therapy that I've done for that too. My posture has always been terrible, but one other thing that I will add is that I remember encountering an article maybe last year. There's evidence that rock climbing actually can help with posture because your reach is so important to get high. And that may also sound kind of like a crazy thing to try, but there are safe ways to do it. There's a program called Upending Parkinson's that is demonstrated this is safe for people with Parkinson's. There are climbing gyms. You can do it in a controlled environment. So check that out. And if you have any questions about that, you can reach out to us at the foundation. We can provide you some more resources about how you can get in touch with people that hopefully there's somebody in your area that's already doing it. So that was one of the questions I wanted to get to. And the other one was about focused ultrasound. And I don't know if Stan, you considered this, but the question was this. Somebody wrote in and said, my husband had focused ultrasound to treat his tremors. The result was wonderfully successful, but it doesn't seem to get talked about as much as DBS. Anybody know why? Stan, did you think about it?
I didn't think about it a lot. I don't think it's an option in Madison. Maybe it is. The one thing about that had trouble with focused ultrasound is that it's a permanent lesion. So if you have it done, you're sort of stuck with what you get. Whereas with DBS, theoretically, you could just take the wire out and you're sort of back to square one. So I've heard that people are happy with it and it's done a lot of good things, but it just seemed that idea that it was sort of more of a permanent lesion made it seem a little riskier to me. But I'm sure there are a lot of people who've done well with it.
Yeah, I think that's the number one thing I've heard from people is that it's not always, there aren't as many experts who have experience with it, but then also the idea that it's reversible to have DBS. But some people aren't eligible for DBS, or some people don't want to have a surgery it makes it a great option for people when you don't want to have the surgery, et cetera.
Right.
Oh yeah, look, there's a cat. 2 cats on the screen now.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll wrap for now. We're at the hour, so I think we'll close up for now. And I just want to add another note that we actually don't have a December meetup planned. As you can see, we have a smaller group today, and that's partially because of late November and December. We start to have more people traveling, and so we tend not to have a meetup in the December window. So we'll be looking forward to seeing you again in January. In the meantime, if you have any questions or if anything comes up, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at the foundation. You can get to the content team and to me by content, CONTENT at dpf.org. And you can also find contact information for all the panelists, so a way to get in touch with them if you go to our website and go to the Live with Parkinson's Meetup homepage. So thanks for being here with us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you again in 2026. Have a great rest of 2025, everybody.